Hi everybody, I wanted to record my labor and delivery story for this little princess, Princess Ivy, and it's just something I wanted to have for myself, so let's just hop right into it. So on December 3rd, I woke up with some bleeding that morning, but to be 36 weeks, it is quite normal to have some bleeding, so I didn't pay it much mind, but my husband suggested that I call the doctor. I did. I left a message and waited for them to call me back. Around 10, I think we have a poo-poo coming. Around 10, I had to go to Babies R Us to get the car seat installed. So I went ahead and did that. I went with my mother. And while I was there, I began to feel some cramping. And I did realize that it was coming and going, but I thought I was just getting Braxton Hicks. I had never got him, so I was like, oh, I'm starting to get Braxton Hicks. I was kind of excited. I was like, oh, I'm getting close. I'm 36 weeks or whatever. But I didn't pay it any mind. Throughout the installation, I kept having them. I didn't say anything. But when we were leaving, I did tell my mom about the bleeding, and she suggested that I call the nurse again and speak to the triage nurse. That time I called and they told me to go ahead and come in. Well, I had been to the hospital before for false alarms, if you've seen any of my previous videos, so I really wasn't into going this time. I didn't want to go. I felt like it was going to be another false alarm, so I told my mom that we should go get some food, and I went to Taco Cabana and ate. And while I was there, I did end up telling her about the cramping that I was feeling, and I didn't think they were full-on contractions, because I was always told that you feel contractions all around your body and up your back, and I only felt them in the front, like normal cramping that you would feel for your period. So I didn't really think anything of it. I even called my friend and spoke to her. She has children, and she said, no, I think you're just having Braxton Hicks. So I was like, yeah. But during that time, my doctor actually called back from the first time I called, and she suggested that I go into the hospital too. So I was like, oh, I guess I'm going to the hospital, right? I go to the hospital. I tell them that I'm there for the bleeding, and because my doctor told me to come in. I don't even mention the cramping or the Braxton Hicks or the fact that they might even be contractions, because I'm like, this is another false alarm. I don't know why I'm here. I didn't think it was anything of it. And they said, well, can you go to the waiting room and wait? I was like, sure, I'm fine. While we're in the waiting room, my mom's like, you need to start timing them to find out if they are consistent. I was like, fine. So I start timing the cramping feeling that I'm getting. Again, it's still only in the front, still feels very normal, not too strong. I can totally tolerate it. And I'm just sitting there, and they're coming like every 6 to 5 minutes, pretty consistently, around 45 seconds long. And I was like, I was like, it's still not consistent enough, you know, let me tell it. And I didn't feel like what I thought was going to be happening or what I was told to look out for. So I'm just sitting there. We wait for a while, finally get a room. That took a little bit for the nurse to finally come in and deal with us. And even once they had me hooked up to the monitors, she couldn't find the contractions. She couldn't tell they were contractions. And at that point, I was still timing them. And then I began to think that they were contractions, because they were coming consistently at 5 minutes, or less. And I was like, oh, well, maybe. So what I ended up doing was I would tell her, I was like, I'm feeling it now. Can you see it? And eventually she did find the contractions on the monitor. But that took a while in itself. She didn't even think I was having contractions. I was like, I'm feeling something. They might not be contractions, but it's something. So that went on for a little while, where they were just monitoring me. And then they switched shift. Another nurse came in, and she finally confirmed that they were consistent contractions, and they called my doctor. They decided to give me a medicine to try to stop the contractions. Once they confirmed that they were contractions, they tried to stop my labor, and that did not work. It kept progressing. They stopped for a little while, and then they came back. The whole time they weren't really telling me much, but they did end up bringing the baby bed in, and I'm still in denial. I'm like, I'm still going home. Like, the nurse didn't tell me it was for me, so I was like, maybe it just goes in the room. I don't think anything of it. My mom's like, you're staying. Because I even asked the nurse, and she was like, oh, I don't know if you're staying or not. Anyway, so when the doctor comes in around 7, she was like, you are definitely in labor. And my doctor said that if that medication does not work, then that definitely means that you're in labor. Real labor cannot be stopped, not even with medication, is what I was informed. So I was in labor in 36 weeks and 5 days. I really thought I was going home, but when she came in, she was like, congratulations, you are not leaving here without a baby. And I was like, OMG, crazy. Yeah, I kept laboring like that, and I was fine for a good while. Then around, I want to say 9:30, no, around 8:30 to 9, I really started to feel the contractions. I didn't want to get an epidural. I wanted to have the labor naturally, but it hurt so bad. And I remember being there, and they were just trying to help, and I'm like, I can't do this, I can't do this. And I swear, if you had a natural birth, power to you. I don't know how you did it. My mom was rubbing the balls on my back, and that felt good and all, but it wasn't cutting it. I was like, I can't do this. So I finally caved around 10 and had the epidural, and whew, that was a lifesaver, right? I felt good for a while, at least maybe an hour, and then I started feeling the contractions again on my left side, and it was really hurting as if I had not had an epidural at all. And I think that's why I really ended up needing them, is because I was having contractions so close together that it was excruciating. They ended up having to have the anesthesiologist come back and give me a higher dosage than what I already had in the IV because it wasn't cutting it. That was around 11:30ish or 12 that he came back to give me maybe 12, to give me the higher dosage. And after that, the nurse decided to check me again to see how I had progressed, since the pain had come back so quickly within an hour of the first epidural. And I was already at 10 centimeters. I was fully dilated. It was crazy. Everybody was so shocked. I was shocked because from the time that I had really started to feel it to that point, everything progressed really quickly, and I was having contractions really close together. And I feel like that's why I really ended up having to have the epidural, because they were so close. I didn't even get a chance to breathe, and it hurt so freaking bad. So yeah, I was at 10 centimeters. She called my doctor. My doctor was on her way. They prepared everything. They started getting everything together. Then my nurse decided that we were going to start to push, as my doctor was already getting close to the hospital, so they thought I was good to push. So I pushed maybe 1 to 2 times, and that's 3 times of 10 is 1 time. It was 1 push technically. I don't know if anyone has ever described the doctor's like push, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm pushing until they count to 10, and then I do that 3 times. That counts as 1. Does that make sense? So I did that maybe twice with her, and she actually had to stop me because the baby's head was right there, and of course they can't deliver without the doctor there, and they're just like waiting for the doctor. She came, and I literally pushed maybe 1 more time after that, and this little girl slipped right on out. She was coming no matter what. She didn't care what anybody had to say. She was born on December 4th at 3:58 a.m. and she was 5 pounds 13 ounces, 18 inches long. She was a little munchkin. She's growing strong though. She's amazing. She's been breaking records since she was born. Everybody was so surprised how she came so fast and how everything progressed. That's all people were talking about. But she's amazing, and that is pretty much my story. She was born at 36 weeks, 6 days, so she was still considered technically preterm, even though the next day she would have been considered full term. So we stayed until Sunday. Everything was normal. She did have some jaundice, but she was still released from the hospital. Everything else was normal, and I'm so thankful and so blessed. And I just think it was such an amazing experience. I love telling the story. If anybody will talk to me about it, I will tell them this full story. But I wanted to be sure that I had it for the future, just to remember. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And that's my little story time. Story time with Ivy. Say hi to the people. Say hi, everybody. Anyways, that's my story. I don't know if I missed anything. I hope I didn't, because that's really why I wanted to record this, is so I can remember every single detail. I thank God for her. Bye.